A common claim by Muslims is that Isaac is not the son which Abraham sacrificed, but it was Ishmael. Now what fascinates me with this is when you read that account in the Quran, it clearly states Isaac. So how do they come through this deception? How can they deny what is written in the Quran if they claim that this is the very word of Allah and is eternal? And we must then also agree that if your base argument or your premise assumption for your argument is based on a false revelation or false claim, surely the conclusion must be false.
Hi, I'm Raymond Douglas and welcome to My Man Cave. The Inside Out perspective takes a look at life's challenges and its effects and asks one simple question: what race are you running?
Now, in my number of years of dealing with Muslims, I tend to avoid the subject of Ishmael and Isaac. And the reason for that is I rather focus on the underlying story and the message which we need to get, which is a foreshadowing of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ's death and resurrection. But putting that aside for one moment, let's have a look at this Islamic claim that it was Ishmael taken to be sacrificed and not Isaac. Now, the reason why I'm tackling this is I got sent a message by a Muslim in Australia, Ali Muhammad. Now, just a little bit of background of this man. This is a qualified civil engineer. So with that background, he sends me an 83-page document which is entitled, "Where is the right path?" And the basis of this argument begins with the sacrifice of Ishmael and not Isaac. So let's have a look at this. And we find that in Surah 37, verse 100 to 112. And this is what it says.
My Lord, grant me from among the righteous. So we gave him good tidings of a forbearing boy. And when he reached him with exertion, he said, O my son, indeed, I have seen in a dream that I sacrificed you. So what you think? He said, O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah wills, the steadfast. And when they had both submitted, he put them down upon his forehead. We called to him, O Abraham, you have fulfilled the vision. Indeed, we thus reward the doers of good. Indeed, this was a clear trial. And we ransomed him with a great sacrifice. And we left him among the latter generations. Peace be upon Abraham. Indeed, we thus reward the good doers. Indeed, he was of our believing servants. And we gave him good tidings of Isaac, a prophet from among the righteous.
Now, I do not understand, firstly, how Muslims cannot see the importance of the story of the sacrifice, because it mentions here very clearly, and we ransomed him with a great sacrifice, the foreshadowing of Jesus Christ's sacrifice on the cross. But nonetheless, we see here in verse 112, and we gave him indeed good tidings of Isaac, a prophet among the righteous. Now I want to point out, not only is this passage referring to Isaac and not Ishmael as the son of sacrifice, but it uses the same phrase, we gave him good tidings of Isaac. And we see that same phrase being used in Surah 345, where the angels say to Mary, Allah gives you good tidings of a word from him, Jesus Christ. So this is a direct command from Allah that Isaac is the sacrificed son. So, if this is a command of Allah, why do Muslims just ignore it? And the reason is, we need to have a look at the tafsirs. And if we have a look at the tafsirs on this passage, and we read the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, this is what we read. Now remember, Ibn Kathir comes from the 14th century. He's a scholar, Islamic scholar from the 14th century in Syria, and he's writing his knowledge and his base on what he thinks, the commentary as us Christians would understand it. That's what tafsir is. So let's have a look what he actually says. According to their book, Allah commanded Ibrahim to sacrifice his only son, and in another text it says his firstborn son. But they falsely inserted the name of Ishak or Isaac. This is not right because it goes against what their own scriptures say. They inserted the name Ishak because of their ancestry, while Ishmael is the ancestor of the Arabs. They were jealous of them. So they added this idea and changed the meaning of the phrase only son to mean the only son who is with you, because Ishmael had been taken with his mother to Makkah or Mecca. So clearly, as far as Ibn Kathir is concerned, and remember Ibn Kathir is from the 14th century, this is 700 years after the death of Muhammad. He comes up with this idea that it is not Isaac, it is Ishmael, which was sacrificed. And suddenly Muslims around the world believe this. So let's analyze this tafsir quickly and see if this is a good foundation to follow. Now remember, in the Quran, where deception is used for the cause of other. In other words, you're allowed to lie to another person if it's going to promote Islam. Why do Muslims follow this deception and this lie which is presented by Ibn Kathir? So the first claim from Ibn Kathir is that we have changed the name from Ishmael to Isaac because we Christians and Jews are jealous of the Arabic nation.
Let's just think about this for a moment. From about 150 BC, that's before Jesus Christ, you've got Alexander the Great and the Greeks occupying Jerusalem and Israel. Just after that, you've got the Roman occupation for another 400 years, up until about 325 AD. And then after that, you've got the Byzantine Empire, right up until 614 AD. Do the Jews honestly have time to worry about being jealous of the Arabs when they're fighting for their own identity through all of these crises?
For a Muslim to prove that Isaac was inserted in place of Ishmael, we need to have a look at the manuscriptal evidence. And if we have a look at the manuscripts, the manuscript which is used in most biblical translations of the Old Testament is the Masoretic text. Now we know the Masoretic text comes around about the 7th century AD. That's around the same time as the Quran comes about. So this could be a very clever claim. But the problem is, what happened some years later, after the time of Ibn Kathir, is that the Dead Sea Scrolls are found. So there couldn't have been a change, because the Dead Sea Scrolls confirm the accuracy of the transmission of the Jewish text. And this goes right back until 150 BC. So that's 150 years before Jesus Christ. We have authenticated knowledge that the word or the name Isaac is used in the biblical narrative. So somehow Ibn Kathir is saying to Muslims, someone around the time of 150 BC, 150 years before Jesus Christ, was jealous of the Islamic faith and therefore changed the name of Ishmael to Isaac. That is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard in my life. So let's have a look at the next claim which Ibn Kathir makes. And the question which needs to be addressed is, who's making this claim? Who is instructing Abraham to go and sacrifice his son. And if we read the biblical narrative and even the Quranic narrative, this is coming from the true God of creation. So who is the son according to the true God of creation? And if we go back to Genesis 15, we see this. We see this where Yahweh comes to Abraham and says, I'm going to make you a great nation. I'm going to give you a son. And what does Abraham do? He says, but Lord, I am 100 and my wife is 100. She's barren. How can you be giving me a son? And God says, don't worry. I will give you a son, and he's going to be the promise. He's going to be the son of the promise, and he is going to lead a great nation, and you're going to be a father of a great nation. So when the God of creation comes to Abram and says, go and sacrifice your son, your firstborn son, whose son do you think he's referring to? Surely it must be the son who he said he's going to give it to him? Or is this an offspring of a half-son made from another promise, the slave girl? When Yahweh is talking and he's saying, take your son, the son I gave you, go and sacrifice him as a test. This is the truth of what is revealed in the biblical narrative. If your premise is based on a false start, how can your conclusion be true? So I'll leave you with the final question once again, and I'll ask you, are you following the faith of deception? Or are you running the good race which your God calls you to run?